fans, Brian Aho here, the legendary Bert Lehman himself, and back by popular demand, from our little brother station, the Dirt Podcast. We got Jeff Krause here. How you boys doing today? Did you have a good 4th?
Yeah.
Always a color commentary by our friend Bert there. Man of many words. That's like the sidekick for the Brewers, right? On the show. Man of many words right there, right? So
well, from the movie Major League.
That's yep.
Yeah.
Nice. How about you, Krause? I know you got a little racing in this weekend. Do you guys do anything else over the 4th?
No, not a whole lot. Went and watched the big fireworks show over at Arrowwood Resort in town. You know where that is, right across where you used to live there.
Yep.
I know we went over there a couple times to watch them at your place too. So didn't do much racing. Car didn't run heat or feature, so I didn't get much laps in. Didn't even break a sweat, but a lot of at home hanging out with the wife and kids.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. Got to have a little family time. I got to take in a race over the weekend. We'll talk about that. I got to do a little golfing with my better half, Brenda. Even actually hit some pretty good ones. Most wouldn't believe that. Probably more not so good ones than good ones, but still had a good time. So episode 184, boys, brought to you by our friends over at Zeuli's Race Engines. Again, over the 4th, a lot of racing this weekend. A pile of wins for them guys. Go to their Facebook page and you'll see they do a really good job of keeping track of all their winners, giving them a shout out. I think that's pretty cool. You don't see a lot of engine builders doing that. So that's just kind of a good, I guess, good bond they have with their drivers. So not just winning races, but setting themselves up to win championships. And if you're an experienced machinist, Frank's looking. They need another guy. They got a lot of engines getting pumped out of that place. Looking for an experienced machinist over at Zeuli's Race Engines. Go ahead and give him a call. Get your resume in to see if you can be part of a winning team. And if you can't beat him, Krause, just saying, got to join him. I know you got a motor guy, but we're going to get you a Zeuli's deal here pretty soon. So, with that said, what are we going to talk about this week? What's the real issue with WISSOTA? What is the real issue? We're going to talk about that in a minute. Our top 5 moments of the week, pretty good ones. One not so good. We'll talk about that. Our picks, a little fan feedback, bold predictions. And first, though, let's talk about our weekend of racing. So, Jeff, you said that you basically didn't even get all kinds of issues this past weekend. What happened? What's going on?
Well, we've been having some fuel pressure issues, and I think we fixed that because I finally had some fuel pressure. If the gauge works or not, right? You know how us racers are with gauges. Half the time we don't believe them, then we get in big trouble. So I can't get no RPMs out of it. It's not winding out. I don't know if it was the distributor, put a new distributor in, nothing. I don't know if the cam's going south, so I'm having a real time getting RPMs at it. Usually at Viking, when the track's fast and you're not lifting, you're twisting the old super pretty good. You can be up in the danger zone, the 7,400, 7,500, and that's danger zone. And I can barely get over 7 grand. So I got something going on there. So we'll get her figured out. And I got a pretty good mechanic, you know that, and hopefully he'll get her figured out.
Yeah, Dad'll take care of you for sure. And I suppose you got to watch that Kostreva race, right? Ryan and Russell Kostreva putting on a hell of a show over there, kind of duking it out for the win. No Krause in the mix, no Sauer, no Miller in the mix, but the Kostreva boys were looking pretty darn good at Viking this past Saturday. So it's no longer just you two. There's a few pretty good cars over there.
Yeah, well, the big thing is there's been, I think, 6 or 7 features now, different winner every week in the supers. And that's super tough, especially these days with car counts and stuff like that. So Sauer's only got one. I got one. Miller's got one. Bailey Roche has one. Kostreva has one. I think I'm missing someone else in there too, but it's been a different winner in the supers. That's what, be honest with you, that's what you want to see. You don't like seeing the old time Scott Dan Ziesens or the Shane Sabraskis and are winning every single week. That's no fun. The fans really get into different people winning.
That is literally the dumbest shit I've ever heard you say in my entire life. All right. Okay. I know you're on the board. I get it. Right. But you're a race car driver. See, your answer should be, I want to win every race, all of them. Okay. We don't care about everybody else winning. You still racing a car. You want to win all of them. Okay. So you need to get your attitude right, or you're going to have to maybe put me back in that car. All right. Just saying. So, Bert, I know you actually took in a couple races this past weekend. Talk about your weekend of racing.
Yeah, I went to Outagamie Speedway last Friday night. The Dirt Kings late models were racing there. Very good show. They had 130 some cars there, and very good show. A lot of passing. Mike Mullen just he has that Seymour track figured out. He won the Dirt Kings late model. Or are we going to talk about the results later on in the show, or should
You
I
can talk about that right now. Yeah, you can
Okay.
talk about that right now.
All right. Because Mike Mullen won again in the Dirt Kings at Seymour. He's won at least one other Dirt Kings race at Seymour, if not two others. So there's a lot of passing on Nick Avalink, who leads in the points. He started deep in the field, started 15th and finished 4th. So he was able to work his way up there. There's a few cautions late in the race. I thought maybe he might be able to finagle into the lead, but Mullen was just too strong. And Justin Ritchie started 9th and finished 2nd. So, two of the top 3 worked their way through the field. Mullen started 3rd, so he started near the front. And then in Benji Lacrosse almost won 2 features in one night. He finished 1st in the modified feature and 2nd in the IMCA stock car feature. And both features were very, very good. A lot of passing.
I tell you what, I really like that Seymour track. When that track is on, it's really racy. They usually have. I didn't watch this past weekend. I knew you were going to talk about it, but they usually have a pretty good cushion, a lot of sliders there. Yep. I've seen some really good racing at that place.
Yeah, the track. I mean, if I had to compare it to something in the western part of the state, I would say it's kind of similar to Menominee, Red Cedar Speedway. But yeah, it's usually very good racing there. And then I went to Shawano Speedway the next night. The racing wasn't as good. The track rubbered up for the late model feature, so there wasn't a whole lot of passing. Yeah.
Todd Frank, though, Bert, 2 in a row. Todd Frank.
Yeah, he won 2 in a row, and both him and his son Gunner are 1-2 in the point standings also. So
let me be frank with you. He got her done. I remember Kraus over at Viking. Todd Frank raced over there a couple of years. It seemed like he ran over there quite a bit. And back in the day, and he might still have it, the bottom row of his tire rack inside of his trailer was a rotisserie to put tire treatment, whatever he was putting on there, probably just cleaning them, I'm guessing.
Well,
but it was wide out in the open.
Maybe he was roasting chickens.
He could have been. Now, on a rubbered up racetrack, I don't think softening tires was probably going to help him. Just saying, but I always got a kick out of old Todd Frank's trailer with the rotisserie for the tires on the bottom rack. I'm like, all right, he's just not even trying to hide it at this point. All right, fair enough. So, hey, you mentioned Nick Anvelink there, Bert. Me and Kraus were talking before you got on here. So, Deer Creek's got to go for 50 this weekend. There's only 38 late models there. One of them is Nick Anvelink.
Okay? Yeah, he posted on Facebook that he was going to be racing there this weekend. So, I mean, we'll get into our picks later on. So, I don't know if he'll be going to Luxembourg on Sunday night for the Dirt Kings race or not.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd probably be there. So looking at this Bert Macon, they got the Herald Review 100. It's 5,000 to win. 100 lapper, 5,000 to win. Little quarter mile, smaller than a quarter. Little bull ring. 37 late models for $5,000 to win. 42 mods. Deer Creek is paying 50,000 to win, and they have one more late model, and they got 29 mods at their show. So Nick Anvelink is there. Bert, there's one late model guy that I got to be honest, it's going to be a donkey award. I don't know. Hopefully he's got some family stuff going on. Hopefully nothing bad. But man, oh man, how the hell is Brent Larson not at Deer Creek? I mean, it's like, other than Cedar Lake, it's the closest freaking track to him that races any. I get it. He's a World of Outlaw guy. There's no World of Outlaw racing going on this week. It's 50,000 to win, and you're less than 100 miles from there, and you don't go. And Deer Creek's a freaking good racetrack. I don't understand. I mean, hopefully he's got a wedding or something to where he just couldn't go. I'm hoping it's the case. Hopefully he didn't just skip out. I was a little surprised to not see the B1 bomber there. And then on top of that, you see, the rookie. Who's the rookie that was in the Hofer? Hofer's there. You see Anvelink over there. Kind of surprised. Are you surprised that Brent Larson's not at Deer Creek?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, if there's no other races going on that, he follows, he's from Minnesota. So, he should, if he races for a living, you would think he would be there.
Right. Kraus, what do you think on that?
Yeah, definitely. And here's the flip side with him. He's actually, he's been a little bit quicker lately. He's been a little bit faster too. So, it does surprise me a little bit that he's not there. Just like, I think he was a couple times this last week, and I think he was near probably top 10 in qualifying a couple nights, and was doing pretty well up here. So he's been fast too. So who knows? Maybe, hopefully, like he says, he has something going on. But on the flip side too, from a fan standpoint, you want to see some Minnesota guys there, and he's got a good following and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I am a little surprised that he's not there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's more to the story that we just don't know. Maybe he's got some kind of legit reason. So let's jump into it. Little hot laps, hot takes, brought to you by our friend Brad Parson Ag Solutions. So one thing we know, and I don't know a lot about chemicals, and I don't know a lot about farming, but I do know this. The right chemicals applied properly in the right amounts make your farming season better, right? So give Brad a call, 320-219-3542. And what Brad will do is he'll get you the data, get you the information. You can maybe test some of his stuff in your current spray packages to see if you can yield better results and make more money. That's a shout out to Brad Parson. So WISSOTA, we've been kind of knocking on them here for a little bit, right? Their new slogan this year, we are WISSOTA, which is accurate, right? So WISSOTA is a combination of the board, the promoters, the drivers, the fans. It's the whole ecosystem, right? And WISSOTA is an organization, guys, that they pride themselves, and I don't know if they do pride themselves, and I don't know if this is good or bad, in being the only organization, only sanctioning body where the promoters actually get a vote. They get a real say in the whole process, okay? Now, I like that to a point. I don't like that to a point. I mean, imagine I had one of the board members say, imagine 50 people trying to drive your truck down the road at the same time. You'd end up in the ditch and go nowhere. Well, that's kind of the same problem there. But here's the issue I have, okay? So, Bert, I'm not sure if you know this, but me and Jeff, Dan, his co-host, probably more like me, not really afraid to kind of put it out there, share our opinion. If we have a thought, we say it, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? I've always had the theory that if I'm willing to say something behind closed doors, I'm going to have the nutsack to come up and say it in public and stand behind what I say. Am I always right? My mom says yes. Probably not. Probably not, though. Okay. I love my mom. And she says I'm always right. I don't think she actually says that. But the fact is, I will absolutely stand behind what I say and what I think. The problem I have, guys, is there's a lot of promoters out there, right? And I'm not going to call, you know who you are. I'm not going to call out anyone specifically, but I've had many conversations, Jeff, you have too, with many, many, many promoters over a career of racing, right? And and drivers, pit meetings are the same deal, by the way. Okay, so you ain't getting off scot-free if you're a driver. But we'll sit and we'll be debating, complaining, bitching about certain things that need to be changed, and WISSOTA's got to fix this, and WISSOTA's got to change that. They don't know what the hell they're doing. And then all of a sudden you get to a platform where you can actually speak up and say something like the WISSOTA meeting or a board meeting or whatever, and half of these promoters sit back in the corner, right? And they're like, well, I ain't going to say nothing. What do you mean you ain't going to say nothing? We talked for an hour yesterday about this, right? And then on top of it, guys, you have some promoters, right, that not only will they'll share the opinion with you on a topic, not only will they not stand behind that, they'll be the one sitting back in the corner going, that freaking Krause, he's a troublemaker. He doesn't shut up. All he does is complain. The hell's wrong with this guy? Be like, Are you shitting me? Like, you're the one who put this idea in my head to begin with, right? What are you talking about? That just drives me nuts, right? And so from the back of your neck down here, right? There's a deal that goes straight down, like above your ass. It's called a backbone, spine, whatever you need to call it. I'm going to do you all a favor. I'm not going to take my shirt off and show you guys. All right. I'm not going to do that. Save that for my other platforms. Just kidding. All right. The fact of the matter is, all right, you got to have a backbone, right? I have mad respect for somebody that they might not have the same opinion as me, and we can sit and argue, debate. We can do all that. But if they're willing to stand behind their thoughts, their opinion, their feelings, that's great. But why on earth are we in a society now that some people will have them thoughts, right? And then literally just, if you speak up, you're a troublemaker. What's your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, it's a tough one. I haven't sat in those meetings. We did not. Viking Speedway did not go last year because we didn't have a contract with the fair board. We didn't know if we were going to have a racetrack. And I know they submit. Maybe one thing is we should. I know they want to get an agenda for the rules. And they send all the tracks in, and it was crazy. Like Viking Speedway was on a lot of those. I remember seeing the agenda. Like there was, you'd get in a rule on something, there'd only be 3 tracks that replied. You know what I mean? It should be 40. Was there 42 tracks or something like that? So it was crazy to see some of these rules. So I don't know if tracks are out of tune. They don't know what's going on. Maybe WISSOTA's not feeding them all the information of what's going on. But I remember seeing that agenda and I was like, well, how come only I-94, Viking, and Monty commented on this? There's street stocks and B-mods at other track, a lot more other tracks than this. So, and then as far as talking, I don't know. It's a tough one. Maybe, I think this day and age, everybody's afraid to make someone mad. Maybe you make a WISSOTA mad. You make a couple drivers mad. They're not going to come to your track. Like I said, we had a huge heated discussion last year on my podcast about the cost to race the WISSOTA 100. And we ruffled some feathers with WISSOTA. But at the end of the day, I had 10s and 20 drivers say, thanks for sticking up for us. Thanks for saying something about the cost to go run the WISSOTA 100. No one's ever said that publicly. So I think it's just some things like that. But, like I said, I think this year, all intentions, I plan on being at those WISSOTA meetings and speaking up. I know one thing, if Dan and I would have been there last year, I know there would have been no 9% tire increase. And I guarantee you street stocks would have Burts and Brins right now. I can guarantee you if we were there, because those are no-brainers. So I just think it's, get everybody showing up and maybe WISSOTA doesn't want to hear everybody's opinion. Maybe they move the meeting along and they just want to skip a topic and not get everybody's opinion on it. So there's a lot of stuff there, but you're right. It needs to be, a lot more promoters need to step up and say, hey, let's do something about this and get things figured out the right way.
Bert, you got anything to add? Because I do have a couple things here.
Well, I mean, I agree with Jeff, and I mean, I'm not exactly sure of how the exact inner workings of how WISSOTA works. I mean, is there ultimately one person who ultimately makes the call, or is it like majority vote on everything that's brought up? I mean,
yeah, to answer that question, Bert, as far as the car rules, the promoters vote on that, and any change has to be a 2/3 majority of the present promoters in order to pass the rule. Administrative, there's kind of a mix. It seems like they do things different ways depending on what the topic is, but they do not have like IMCA's owned by Brett Root.
Right.
Like what they're doing or not, right? That some things suck with IMCA, some things are okay. Their tires are definitely worse, I can tell you that. But the fact of the matter is, he makes the decision, period. End of discussion. Here's the decision. Don't like it, great. You like it, great. I made the decision. In WISSOTA, when the board makes a decision, you got, a collective group of 9 people, 8 now, Um, and the fact is, if it's the promoters, you have a lot more. And like Jeff said, some promoters are like, I don't want to vote a certain way. I'm afraid to hurt my driver's feelings, upset them. So it's a collective group, which is really hard to do.
And, I can see situations where, somebody doesn't want to speak up because they don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. They don't want drivers to shy away from their track, or they don't want WISSOTA picking on their track with, sending inspectors. I don't know if they send inspectors, but you know what I mean. And, I can also see, where some promoters just aren't informed fully about the topic. So they'll just vote however their friends vote, even if it's not good for the organization as a whole. They'll just vote, with the majority, because that's just what, they want to be friends with people. So I can see some ways where rules that aren't good can get in place there. I mean, you brought up Brett Root. I was actually going to bring that up because, we've had some Facebook comments that, WISSOTA needs to be more like IMCA. And Brett, as an owner of the organization, he definitely has a vested interest in the success of that organization. And I don't know if anybody in WISSOTA really has a fully vested interest in the overall performance of WISSOTA.
Not a vet. Well, we would hope not, right? They're not supposed to.
The promoters have a vested interest for the success of their track.
Some do. Some, not all, right? Because like Viking, for example, in Hibbing and Grand Rapids, that's a board-run entity. So there's no vested interest. Yeah. They're not paid. So it just depends on the situation. So I'm going to put it this way, right? So, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a car rule. It can be any topic, the growth of the organization, right? I'm going to use Deer Creek as an example because we mentioned them earlier. And I like Deer Creek. It's a great track. Hell, they had 169 cars last week. They get a shit ton of cars there, right? But here's the deal. We go to these meetings and it could be any specific topic and you'd have somebody voicing their opinion, right? Like this needs to change, this needs to get better. They'd be kind of getting heated. And you'd have certain representatives of the Deer Creek Speedway saying, well, we need to back off a little bit and give them a chance to do their job. And they just a whole song and dance, right? But guess who dropped WISSOTA? Deer Creek. So clearly they agreed, right? But they didn't, instead of looking at, nothing wrong with USRA. I think there's a lot of great things with USRA. But if they were so passionate about, well, we need to go this other direction, why didn't they look and go, look, hey, here's the deal. Let's actively try to take what I like about USRA, implement it into WISSOTA. Let's make WISSOTA better instead of going, well, this sucks over here. We're going to go this way. Well, if you think it sucked, why don't you say something at the meeting instead of poo-pooing all the freaking promoters that did say something? I think that shit just pisses me off. So drivers, okay, here's what I got for drivers, including you, Jeff, okay, is the rules-making process. Here's how it works. A promoter can take a rule, right? They can say, I don't like this rule. Here's what I want the new rule to be. Here's why I want that to be. Cost, safety, whatever it needs to be, right? Write a proposed rule change if you're a driver and get that to all the promoters that have that specific class that you're talking about, okay? Street stock drivers, if you want Burt transmissions, this is a very simple deal. You get a hold of write the rule. Excuse me, I'm dying up here. My God. If you want a rule changed, write the rule that you want for the transmissions. We want Birch and Brins and however you want to write it. Look at the super stock rule, write it the same way, okay? And submit that. Reach out to all the promoters and say, this is why we want it. This is what we want changed. This is how we want it done. And then you're going to find out which promoters actually are doing their job, right? Because those promoters are then supposed to submit that to WISSOTA as a proposed rule, and that agenda comes back to all the promoters, so that way they can look at it, research it, vote on it at the meeting. Now, some promoters, I'll be honest, are fantastic. There are some promoters that really, really do their due diligence, and and they know all the topics. They've researched it. They've talked to drivers. They've talked to people. They know exactly what they're doing. And I tell you what, that's a tip of the cap to the very involved ones. But it's hard to be too upset with the ones that aren't involved, because most tracks are, most promoters are trying to find enough time to even run their racetrack. And like a board in Alexandria, Hibbing Rapids, you're doing it for free. So you're already giving 30, 40, 50 hours a week away of your time for no money. So those promoters, half of them are sitting back going, we don't really want to be involved with this process. We'll get you some information, but we don't want to vote on all this stuff. We'll get you the information, tell you what we think, put the right people in place, let them do their job. Again, guys, I think it comes back to this. The current business structure of WISSOTA is, I think it's broken. I think that there's a lot. That's where the core problem is the way it's all laid out. Too many people trying to make decisions when you don't need it. And there's just not enough time in the day. So anything else on that topic, guys, before we jump on to the next one?
Yeah, I think you touched base there, Ryan, about the disconnect between the drivers and promoters and or WISSOTA for that matter. And like you said, I flat out remember talking to Ryan Satter last year about street stock rule changes. And fortunate enough, I got a super stock. I ran a street stock for about a year and a half there. And Dave Tennis is on our board. He owns a modified, and we got another B-Mod. We had a B-Mod representative on our board. So we had kind of everything. But I flat out, we asked Brady Gertis. We asked multiple drivers, is there anything that needs to be done? What needs to be done? And I just, and from my standpoint now, I've obviously learned a lot being on the promoter side of things. Because before, just like you, we were drivers, and all we cared about was the drivers. We wanted to win, and we were going to do whatever we want for the drivers. So now on the promoter side of things, I think you kind of see the difference. But flip side is, how many drivers out there, and I'm not pumping my own tire. Obviously, we got things we need to prove on too, understand what it takes for promoting and understands owning a race car. And like I said, with all these, it's increases tires, increase this. Cost of everything has gone up. What are we doing to help the drivers save money? Because at the end of the day, drivers don't show up to the track. Guess what? Fans don't show up to the track. And if fans don't show up to the track, guess what? Get the nails out, get the boards out, board the place up. You're done if the fans don't show up. So yeah, you're right. And Bert made some good points too there, and he was kind of leaning towards that, the disconnect drivers. And then I get it can be an icy road with drivers and promoters and WISSOTA. So yeah, there's a lot going on there, but I think the big thing is you gotta take some input. And it seems like every time the drivers put in some input, you get blown off. And I think that's where the frustration and people getting mad. So, well, we said this, we did that, and now you're blowing us off and you're not doing anything about it. So yeah, definitely there's a little of everything involved in that.
Absolutely. So let's jump on to our top 5 moments of the week. So before we do, a little shout out to our friends over at Daytona 1 Performance Lubricants. And this week, guys, I'm actually going to be hosting a Facebook Live with a couple representatives from Daytona 1 Performance Lubricants. Why? To inform people on what their product is all about. They have a lot of different products, right? Buck is a industry expert. He's in the Hall of Fame, of course, for NASA, for lubricants. But their goal, their core value is to do exactly, perfect segue, exactly what Jeff was talking about, bringing the cost down. Right? If the right lubricants in your engine, that expands the life of an engine, right? The right lubricants in your gears expands the life of gears. The right lubricants, Bert must have a call. The right lubricants, the right lubricants on tires, right, are going to make your tires last longer. So stay tuned for that. We're going to have a Facebook Live to get you guys some information. In the meantime, if you want more information and want to be a little discreet on calling, 507-828-3536, and you can call Chad. He can get you informed. He can get you all the information you want. So number 5, guys, actually, I'm going to put this one as an honorable mention, right? So Bert Lehman left. He's got some issues going on there. So we'll just keep the show going, and I'll watch for him to come back in. I don't know what he's got going on. So number 5, did you see that rollover, Jeff, in Superior last week in the Pure Stock division?
I did not. I just flipped over and I saw the records on that track, but I didn't watch replay either.
Holy crap. I'm going to post that here for everybody to see if you're watching. If you're, maybe I'll post it separately on the page too. But Jake Smith, second generation guy, his dad, Don Smith, running a modified. He ran supers, streets, he ran B-mods, he ran all kinds of things. Jake kind of coming into his own this year. He's got a win already running up front. Man, he went for a ride down the front straightaway at Superior, and that thing went tumbling. I don't know, 4 or 5 times or whatever. She was pretty violent. He walked away. I wasn't able to get a hold of him. Must have a different car because he was back racing on the weekend. I can tell it wasn't the same one. Let's put it that way. So that's the honorable mention. The other thing, I'm going to watch to see if Bert is. Nope, he's not back on yet. Bert's he must have a phone call or something. So the one that I'm going to put at 5, I went to Paducah last week. See him sporting a new hat here, right? We got the high side hustler, Jason Fager. So I was trucking. I'm like, you know what? Hell Tour race, Paducah, never been there. Never went there at all. And some people, I know you don't hear it as a promoter, but some people complain about dust, right? They're like, oh my God, it's so dusty. It's a dirt track. Let's relax a little bit. Well, she was dusty, all right? But the dust didn't carry into the stands. Jeff, probably one of the more exciting races that I've ever seen. In the heat race, Drake Troutman, 17, 18 years old, was leading the heat, got a flat tire, had to start 17th in the A main. He passed his way to second. Wasn't attrition. He drove to second, throwing sliders, whatever he had to do. Handful of laps left. Ashton Winger's leading. Ashton Winger, right rear flat. Next thing you know, Drake Troutman's leading. Well, on lap 2, Jason Fager, he got a flat tire, had to go back to 21st, 22nd, had to start all the way in the back, and he stormed all the way to the front. And them last 3 laps were absolute, just a Donnybrook. Jason Fager from dead last on the grid after getting a flat tire. And kind of a fun deal, though. I visited with a guy that came over from Australia. I was sitting over like under a podium. Just got to chat with a guy before the races. He said it's like his 7th straight year of making the trip from Australia specifically for the Hell Tour, which is crazy because, I mean, the Hell Tour is great, but it's not Lucas Oil. It's not World of Outlaws. The quality of cars, there's not quite as many good ones, but he said he had a blast. I said, what's your favorite track on the tour? What do you think it was?
Fairbury?
Absolutely. Without question. It was Fairbury. So got to chat with him and just a good time. Got to meet some people over there and pretty cool facility. The straightaways have more banking than a lot of corners do at a lot of racetracks. So super fast. Kenny Wallace was there. He got 3rd. Overall, good time. Let me see if Bert's back in the.
Yeah. One comment about Paducah, Ryan.
Yep.
You sent me a text that said, wow, was that entertaining in person? And don't get me wrong, it was a good race on Dirt Vision, but the way you described it, I should say, was like you needed to be here. So I'm going to throw a shout out to all you race fans out there. Go and support your local track. Yeah, it's awesome sitting on your couch watching it on TV. But like you said, and you're 100% right. Sometimes the action, you don't see what's going on in the pits. You don't see the pit crews running through the pits, getting ready to change a tire and seeing all the action. So as soon as you sent that text out with me, it's like, you know what? Fans, get out and support your local tracks. Get out there and fill those grandstands. Yeah,
you said it spot on. And we have some great streaming platforms out there. Of course, Dirt Race Central does a lot of WISSOTA stuff, but boy, there's nothing like being there. Number 4, Casino Speedway, modified action over there. Tony Konold coming up a little short, throwing some haymaker sliders there with Superman, Mike Stearns. Stearns kind of had a rough start to the season, got a couple wins this week, but if you haven't had a chance, jump on to Dirt Race Central. And I think they actually, on their Facebook page, they have like the last 7-8 laps of that deal, and it was really, really good. And Joe Thomas and TPO weren't really in the mix, and next thing you know, in the last couple laps, they were kind of lurking. But a really good race, another great battle at Casino. Number 3, I'll let you talk about this one, Jeff. I-94 Speedway over in Fergus. They had the Dirt Race Central Street Stock Tour along with the World of Outlaws on Saturday. Get Bert back in here. Bert's coming back. We got him back. Bert's back in the house. All right.
Yeah, my phone died. I had it plugged in, but apparently that cord does not work with my phone. So I had to find a different cord.
Been there, done that. I get it. So we talked about number 4. We talked about number 5. Talked a little bit about my trip over to Paducah, Bert. Number 3, street stock action. I tell you what, guys, over the last couple of years, I watched a lot of races. I mean, street stocks, IMCA stock cars, UMP stock cars. That's been about my favorite to watch. Man, they put on a show. This one, no different. Gross, what happened over at I-94 that really, really stuck out on Friday night?
Well, the big thing was I was watching there, and I heard rollover on Friday night, and I'm pretty sure that's Jim Gullickson. He's only got about a couple nights on that car. Is that thing pretty much brand new?
I think it is new. Yeah, I'm not positive, but I think so.
I don't know. Is it a factory 43 car, or do you know, or was it? I don't know. I know I tried getting him up here, and he texted, said, "Hey, I'm running late. Do you guys run hot laps up at Viking?" I said, "No, we usually don't." Then he said, "Well, I got a brand new car." I'm like, "You got plenty of laps in a street stock. You don't need hot laps." So he went for a little tumble, kind of all on his own, right in the middle of 3 and 4. And they flipped it over. I'm like, well, heck, you might as well keep running that thing. And did he try to restart the heat? I'm not sure. Did he finish the heat?
I think he might have finished the heat. I don't remember the heat. I remember the rest of the night, not the heat.
Yeah, he finished the heat, and then I flipped it back. I was obviously flipping channels. There's a lot of racing going on Friday night. He wins the B feature. Then he must have started. Must have been what, 21st, 22nd,
22nd, yeah, 22nd.
Somewhere in there. And then before he ended up I thought he was going to get in the top 5. He was just outside the top 5, correct?
4th.
Well, he did get 4th. Okay, yep. So I was wrong. So I saw him in about 6th or 7th, and like I said, I was flipping back and forth. There's a lot of stuff going on, and then I suddenly looked up on the ticker and I see Gullickson up there. That's a heck of a night. When it reminds me of Tim Johnson a few years ago. I don't know if it was an Ogilvy or if it was, I think it might have been KRA. He rolled, went starting the back. He ended up winning the feature after rolling. So it was one of those nights, and good thing it was a soft roll. He didn't wreck too much stuff, but another fan experience. You got to be there. You got to see, hey, a guy rolled. Let's see what he does in the B feature. Let's see what he does in the A features. It was exciting, and it had my eye. That was for sure.
You're exactly right, because a lot of times I don't even watch heats when I'm watching streaming. I'll just skip past all that. I'll just watch the features. Sometimes if I watch a replay, I'll fast forward. Maybe don't even have volume, right? So sometimes I'll just be kind of scurrying through. I never would have caught that. So yeah. So the fact is, Bert, he rolled over in the heat, come from the back, 22nd on a tour night, stacked field of cars, drove up into the top 5, got 4th. Good rebound there for Jimmy Gullickson. Number 2. It's kind of a homer one right here. I got to be honest with you. 3rd generation Blake Adams. Of course, his dad, the legendary Buzzy Adams. His grandpa, Dave Adams. Grandpa on the other side is Tim McMahon, right? A lot of national championships in that group. But Blake Adams, rookie year here in the Midwest Mods, made his maiden voyage up to the Grand Rapids Speedway. 8th to 1st. Impressive run up there. So I'm telling you what, with Soda Racers, you got company. I mean, we already know that Buzzy was a legit racer. Blake Adams is freaking really, really good, and I'm really excited to see the future that kid has. And at number 1, the border battle over at the Gondik Law Speedway. The old Iron Man, Shane Sabraski, started P1, led all 50 laps. Not normally big news, right? It's like, okay, Shane Sabraski won another feature. Who gives a shit? He's got 848 of them or whatever the heck it is, right? He's never won a 10,000 a win race before. First one. I'm like, I would have never guessed that. I figured he would have had a handful. The last one I remember, I don't know if you guys remember this. We talked about it on the show, Bert, so you might, Jeff, you probably saw it. He had the, I think it was the Mod Nationals over at Ogilvy. Kind of had it won. He was running a crate at the time. Put her in protect mode on the last lap and just kind of sallied it into 3 and 4. And Mike Anderson drove by him to win on the last corner. And that would have been his first 10 grand to win show a handful of years ago. So congratulations to the Iron Man, Shane Sabraski. I mean, great career nonetheless, but them 10,000 to win races. I mean, if you have 850 feature wins and you only have one, that tells you how big those moments are, especially on like a local regional level. So that's pretty cool. So let's jump into a little who's hot and who's not, brought to you by a brand new sponsor here, Fastlane Motorsports and Powder Coating of Ashland, Wisconsin. So Chris Bredding, he has a great staff over there. They don't just build race cars. They build the Galloper chassis. I ran that in a modified for a handful of years, back when I was still turning laps. But they service a lot of racetracks. They service not Grand Rapids, Superior, Ashland, Proctor. They're the parts trucks. They sell parts. They sell tires. They sell it all. But they also do custom powder coating. They do sandblasting. They do any kind of fabrication. Doesn't have to just be race cars. They do any kind of fabrication over there. So thanks a lot, Chris, for coming on board the show, and look forward to the next year with you here. So let's start with a little who's hot. And I talked to Jeff here, Bert, about maybe doing if you happen to have like a national and a local on the hot and not, right? If not, no big deal. But let's start with who's hot. Okay, let's start with Bert. Who do you have as far as like who's hot?
Well, you have to stay with RTJ. He just keeps putting wins in his win column, and he's having an unbelievable year he's not a rookie, and he's been racing late models for several years, but it just seems like when he won a big race last year, and it's just kind of carried over to this year, and he just keeps winning.
Absolutely. Anybody on the local level for you as far as who's hot?
I did not do a local level, but I'll go with Todd Frank. He's got 2 feature wins in a row at Shawano Speedway. So
yes, he does. 3. His kid won the opener, right?
His kid won one earlier in the year. Yes.
Yeah. So the Frank family has 3 in the late model at Shawano. Kraus, who's hot?
We're going to stay, Bert took the national one. I don't think there's any talking about that with RTJ. It's pretty simple with that. I'm going local for the who's hot. I'm going with the Blasick family, with Brendan Blasick and Tayton Blasick. Of course, Brendan Blasick was the Midwest Mod Hot Shoe last year, and got his first career modified feature, WISSOTA modified feature up at I-94 on Friday. And then his brother, Tayton, got his first career Midwest mod win at Viking Speedway on Saturday. And Brendan got a 5th at our mod special on, we had 21 mods for 1,200 to win on Saturday. And he ended up 5th in that one in a very stacked field. You know how the modifieds are at Viking Speedway and I-94. You better bring your A game every single night, or you're going to be in the back. So I'm just going to be continuing to see, how it happens when you get your first win, how it goes. See, Tayton Blasick's been kind of creeping up. I think he's 17 years old. I'm getting his feet wet. And now his brother looks like he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in that mod class.
And he was legit one of the top drivers, especially in central Minnesota in the Midwest mod division. No surprise. If you can win in one class, you can win in another. And he's proved just that. So, tip of the cap to the Blasics, and I look forward to seeing more of them in Victory Lane. And I got to stick with you guys, right? RTJ, nothing else needs to be said. He is just he is a number one right now as far as national scene goes in everything. I don't think there's anybody hotter in the country than RTJ right now.
Well,
go ahead, Bruce.
Oh, well, I have one before we go to not hot. I have another hot one. So
okay. Go ahead. Why don't you just roll right in with
he was racing in the backyard in western Wisconsin over this past weekend. David Gravel, won the big one at Huset, and then won the big one on Saturday night at Cedar Lake Speedway with the World of Outlaw Sprint Cars. So he's doing pretty well right now.
Could he possibly end the streak? Remember, Brad Sweet, 4 straight, right? He has 4 straight World of Outlaw championships. Could it end at that? Could this be the year for David Gravel? I'm going to go another homer deal here, guys. I'm going Kevin Burdick. So last year, he kind of missed a bunch of the year, only had 1 motor. He kind of rejuvenated his engine program this year. And 7 of his last 10 in the late model have been in the top 2. So he's been really good in the late model division. And they have the KME Triple Crown deal up there between Gondik Law Speedway, Hibbing, and Halberlines and Proctor. He's leading that for 10 grand a win. And on top of that, the Gondik Law Speedway put together a point fund. I think it was an 8-show deal. He had a solid weekend up there in Superior at the border battle, sitting in a pretty good position to put another 6,000 on top of that. So Kevin Burdick really looking good in that 30. How about not hot? Bert, let's start with you. Who's not hot?
I'm gonna go with Jimmy Owens just from the fact that he hasn't even been racing with the two top organizations over the last week or so. I can't remember where he was racing, but it wasn't with Lucas or World of Outlaws. So, you know, I don't know if he's just trying to get his program back together. So
and then these fighting words, Bert. Fighting words. So I will clarify one thing here. Jimmy Owens was at Tazewell for a 20 or 21,000 to win.
Okay.
And he got second behind Dale McDowell there. So, but yeah, you're right. On the national with the Lucas and World of Outlaws, he's been. I didn't see him. Jeff, is he at? I don't think he's at Deer Creek, is he?
I don't think he is either.
Yeah. So Bert, you are correct. When it comes to the national scene, he's been kind of on the struggle bus there. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. So who else you got?
Locally, I'm going to put Taylor Scheffler. He's not necessarily by his own making. He didn't finish the Dirt Kings race at Seymour. He didn't finish the Dirt Kings race at Shawano earlier this year. So he's struggling a little bit on the Dirt Kings side. It wasn't necessarily all his fault. It looked like he got pushed into the wall a little bit at Seymour, but that's the way it goes on a tight track like that. For
sure. So keep an eye on it. He's probably going to win this weekend now that we put him on the not hot.
Probably.
How it works. So, Kraus, not hot. Who do you got?
Well, other than myself, I don't have anybody. I don't have anybody locally. I could maybe actually. It was funny. Jason Tennis texted me today, and he said it's about time the 52 and 29 get back to victory lane. So I'm going to have to throw us both under the bus, JT, and say I think the 52 and the 29 got to get off this not hot streak and go from there. So nationally, I'm going with Chris Madden. I think he got second at the Dream, though, did he not?
Yeah.
But he's just not himself. I know he got a brand new car. I think that was about a month ago, was he? I know he was fighting it. And he got faster, you know, as Fargo, Grand Forks. I know I-94, he got a little bit faster, but I know he's not where he needs to be. Because I thought there was some times last year, if you threw him and Davenport and a couple guys in a race, he was going to be right there. So I'm going with Chris Madden. I've heard nothing but good things about him. I know he's feisty. He can be aggressive, and I like that. I've heard nothing but great things about him, that he's a good guy. So hopefully we can, and it's fun watching. I like watching the Rocket Longhorn competition, and it's nice. We need another Rocket chassis up in the mix there, mixing it up with those Longhorns. So hopefully Mr. Madden can get her back going.
Absolutely. So on the not hot list, I'm going to kind of go, he's kind of a local, right? North Dakota, Donnie Schatz. Dude, he's got one top 5 in his last 14 shows. Literally one top 5 in the entire month of June. He got third at Ogilvy. I tell you, he had a couple wins there back to back, and then he just kind of, from that point forward, has been not good. So we'll see if we can get old Schatzy turned around. As far as local, Jody Belfi. Man, he's been struggling. So here's what I don't get. Okay, so first of all, he's been off, right? And then he got kind of caught with his pants down, not literally, okay, figuratively, at Superior. He's starting front row next to Shane Sobraski. He won the 10,000 last year at the border battle. He's starting outside row number 1, meaning that he was second high in passing points, right? So he had a pretty decent piece. Well, they're lined up for hot laps. They ran because they had just the B mains and the features for the mods on Saturday, full show for everyone else. So they get the show in, and they're going to let the mods go out, right? Because they were supposed to run a little bit later in the night than they did, and they were going to go out and they were going to run some hot laps. And he's like, I'm going to do a little testing. According to his Facebook post, he had something in there he was going to try. They're literally sitting and staging, guys, the fog starts rolling in off Lake Superior, and they said, change of plans. You're rolling out on the racetrack. Fuel up. We're going racing. No time to change anything. He went first to like 8th in the feature. He was just a non-factor. But here's what I don't get. So he was bolted last year, right? Unbelievably fast everywhere he went. Well, I mean, won that big race. And he's a guy that he's not hard on equipment. Never really. If it's super rough, he pulls off, saves his stuff, but he's got to get a new car every year, right? It's kind of like the mindset of drivers. Oh, got to have a new car. That one's not even broke in yet, right? What? So that just shows right there that the new car deal is not always the answer, because had he stuck with last year's car, he wouldn't be sitting here the first half of the season trying to figure this one out. So let that be a lesson. If you got a pretty fast hot rod out there, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to switch race cars. You can stick with the one that's good, okay? You don't have to go get a new one. That doesn't automatically make you faster. So Jody Belfi, not hot.
Well,
so
speaking of cars, I mean, sometimes it takes some time to get it figured out. I mean, this was back in the 90s. I know technology has changed a lot since then, but this is the late 90s. One of MJ McBride's most successful years with feature wins at Channel Speedway, later in his career, was in the late 90s on a car that was 2 or 3 years old. Whatever changes he would make to the car, he knew exactly what the car would do. So sometimes it takes that long to figure things out.
Dale McDowell's car is 5 or 6 years old, and I think 5 maybe, and it's still fast. I'm just saying. So, little fan feedback, boys, brought to you by our friends at buyraceshirts.com. If you need hats, shirts, hoodies, apparel for your race team, for your club, for your business, whatever it may be, Jordan and the crew at buyraceshirts.com, they can help you out. They got great pricing, a lot of different ways that you can buy stuff. If you want to buy big quantities or small, check them out, buyraceshirts.com. So, a couple questions we have. So, Tom, big late model fan, he said, and he said he really enjoys the show. Misses Puka. He's like, where is Puka been? I miss Puka. I don't think he likes us, Bert. I think he likes Puka more than us. But he said, good to see the World of Outlaw late models coming back up into the region this past weekend. Very pleasantly surprised with the amount of open cars. Traditionally, there's only been 12, and there's like 20 open cars, or maybe even more. What, in your guys' opinion, what race stood out as far as the swing up north? Do you have a race that you thought was the best, and why?
Well, obviously the one that gathered the most attention was the bologna sandwich race. When Bobby Pierce and Kyle Bronson got together. What track was that at? It was one of the earlier races.
That was the first one. That was in what, Mason City?
No, that was at Fargo.
Was that
Red
at Fargo?
River Valley. That was at Fargo. Yep.
I thought that was Mason City. Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, that one gathered the most attention, but probably one of the ones that was most exciting was the one that Ryan Gustin won. That was a pretty good race. And even the race before that, Gustin was leading and got a flat tire, which basically I think cost him the victory in that race. And that was a pretty good race also.
Yeah, there was some pretty good racing. And that bologna sandwich, needless to say, you can jump online. It's all over social media. But Bronson and Pierce got together. Neither one of them two give each other an inch. And now keep in mind, Bronson used to date Bobby Pierce's sister.
That's what, right? I thought.
Yeah, so down in Victory Lane, he said something on the order of, or when he was getting interviewed, well, I'd slap him in the face and eat a bologna sandwich or something like that. It's like, where's he come up with that? But it kind of broke Facebook that night. So, Kraus, what race stuck out to you?
Yeah, I don't. I think the best race of the weekend was definitely Grand Forks, River Cities. I thought that was the best race. To be honest with you, Mason City was really good to start, and then it locked down rubber. And I know that all those guys said after the race, man, that thing could have stayed wide. It would have been a good race. But, Red River Valley is weird. Everybody was kind of expected to be slick. And if you don't race there much, you don't know The water comes out of that track and it's crazy. You can drive around under yellow. You can physically see the water come up out of the track. Remember, I ran back there a few times. I'm like, what's going on here? I set up for asphalt and I'm hammered down wide open. So I thought that was a good race. I definitely thought Grand Forks was a very good race. And to be honest with you, once I-94 got their track ran in and got that figured out, I-94 was a really good race too. There was and the key to all that, Ryan, was what? Moisture. Water. And get some moisture in the track. Fans don't want to see slow asphalt racing. They just don't. They want to see guys rip. I mean, Bronson was sparking the wall in Fergus. Pierce was sparking the wall. I mean, Marlar was on the cushion in Fargo. So I thought all three overall was good, but River Cities was definitely the best race.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with I-94, and it's weird. Mason City, like you said, that was good early. I don't know if you saw Jason Strand. Did you see he hit that wall opening freaking a ton and rolled? There, right there. We'll talk about safety, right? Everybody's talking, safety. That wall opening about destroyed a race car right there. So good track, but that was kind of a scary deal. Hopefully it's not too bad. Fargo, we were texting during that race, and we're like, man, this is going to be a debacle. It was just bone dry, dusty in the heat race. We're like, this is going to be terrible. And the moisture come up, and all of a sudden you got a freaking good racetrack. I-94, other than a really long track prep program, and to his credit, Don made sure the announcer announced, hey, we apologize. By no means we wanted to have that, and I'm sure he didn't want to have a 2-hour intermission or whatever it was. Kind of reminded me of the 100, though, right? A couple of years back. They freaking farmed it between every single feature. Next thing you know, they're running the mod feature at 2 a.m. Johnny Broken goes from 25th to 2nd, puts on the best show of the weekend, and everybody's sleeping. Like, nobody's watching it. Well, kind of the same thing here, The track, I thought the track was phenomenal. Bobby Pierce said it's a lot like Florence, throwing sliders and haymakers and banging the boards. But it took moisture. So I urge tracks to just get more moisture in it early so you don't have to do that. But overall, that ended up being probably my favorite race of the week was at I-94. So let's jump over to Bill. He said, was at the Border Battle. Great show over at the Border Battle this weekend in Superior, Wisconsin at the Gondik Speedway. Mod feature. Glad they got that in. He said tip of the cap to whoever's in charge. I assume Chris for switching the order to get that 10 grand to win show in. Track was getting wet slick out there. Johnny Broking, who's been struggling a bit, come from row 6 to 3rd. Row 6 or row 7. Gerke did too. So the winner of that, Sobraski, Ryan Gerke came from either row 6 or row 7 to 2nd. Dave Kane got 3rd. And I'm like, I just watched the race, right? And I'm looking at my race pass. I'm like, weird. And next thing you know, you got Dave Kane out in Victory Lane. And they're interviewing him for 3rd. I'm like, he didn't get freaking 3rd. Johnny Broking got 3rd, right? So he said Johnny Broking got a new sponsor, Dairy Queen, DQ gift cards here. Just kidding, Johnny. Tough deal. So and they're like, what happened? Why did he get DQ'd? Because nobody talked about it, right? His header broke. So where the tubes come down into 2 at the end, the collector where the muffler goes on, it wasn't like tabs that you bolt. I thought it was tabs and you bolted it together. It was literally welded around there. The welds broke, and the freaking collector and the muffler came off, laying on the racetrack. Automatic disqualification. So he wasn't cheating or anything stupid like that. It was just dumb luck. And it's a good rule because I don't know if you guys remember, but years back in the 90s in Menominee, a muffler came off, flew into the stands. There was somebody killed at the Red Cedar Speedway in Menominee. That's where that rule came about. But he said that prompted 2 questions. One is, are cars built too weak? Right? Let's face it, racetracks aren't even rough like they used to be. There ain't no moisture in them. Literally, you hit the smallest bump, the whole car falls apart, right? You see late models, they hit a cushion, the whole front freaking nose is underneath the race car. I mean, you hit a little bit of a rut, the J-bar's bent in half. Are cars built too weak? You're paying literally 4 times as much for a race car that can take 1/10 of the abuse that a car could take 25 years ago. Your thoughts?
Jeff, you can go first.
Yeah, well, they are. It's just the way the times are. Everybody's trying to cut costs. Shipping costs are out of control. Everything's out of control, and it's I think parts are. Maybe it's we saw some halos and some chassis collapsing and falling apart too the last couple of weeks too. So yeah, I definitely think they are, and it's something you need to make sure you have a good dad like I got that's checking all those things. And tell Mr. Broking he needs to weld a tab on that and brace your muffler to your chassis. So when that does break, it just dangles there and it doesn't fall off your car. That happened to me one time. I snookered Gene over at Fiesta City Speedway and stuck a baffle in the end of my pipe, and he thought it was a muffler. So sorry, Gene. I can tell you that story now. It's been 5 years, but yeah, no, I definitely think so, and I think a lot of it's maintenance too. I think just people, you know how it is. You ran 100 shows a year, and sometimes you miss some things. So, but I definitely think tires. A lot of that stuff is getting built cheaper, and it's too bad. But a lot of it's out of our control. It's the economy, and then it all stems from our buddy at the White House.
Yeah, there's something to that. We won't get into that conversation, but I'm not going to disagree with you for sure. So, yeah, I think that they're just way too weak. I mean, there's a lot of things. We used to build stuff back in the day. I mean, now everybody's buying everything, and the days of people fabricating their own stuff are long gone for most people. And I mean, if the cars can't take a little bit of an abuse out there, I don't know. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I like looking at racetracks that have just a little character, not bonsai and through the ruts. But if the cars are going to fall apart from that type of stuff, there's definitely an issue.
Well, and all the parts, everybody's going for lightweight parts. Everything's, they're trying to shave as much weight off of parts so the drivers can put the weight where they want to on the car to get better performance. And when you go lighter weight, I mean, granted, you can use different materials that are still good, but it's going to tend to be weaker in some instances.
For sure. So, Jeff, I got a question. Viking Speedway. Let's say Johnny Broking, for example, running third gets DQ'd because the muffler fell or the part of the header broke and fell off. What does he get paid?
$0.
I gotta give a shout out. This is painful, guys. It's painful. I gotta give a shout out to Chris Steppen. So he got third, got DQ'd, rightfully so. That should be $0, right? And he got a check today, $1,250. He got $1,000 start money, $250 for the hard luck award. He's like, I got disqualified. My part broke, and he still got a check in the mail. So as much as I like to dog that guy for having his hand in the pockets of racers, I gotta tip my cap, and I gotta say, job well done on doing. I don't even know if I call it the right thing because he didn't have to do it, but doing something above and beyond that he didn't have to do for the racer. I thought that was noteworthy to kind of give him a shout out there. But I got a question. Here's the other question: is should these be anytime there's a disqualification? Should it be a teachable moment? Okay. And let's use this. I mean, we got social media, we got Facebook Live, we got way more technology out there than ever. But if somebody gets DQ'd for anything, right? His header broke. Should WISSOTA then, or the track submit a picture, video, or whatever to WISSOTA they submitted, but should they take a picture of that and show it and say, okay, Johnny Broking was disqualified. Here's what happened. Okay. Here's why you got DQ'd. Here's what happened. Drivers, just check your stuff out. Or that's a part failure, but let's use something like roof rake, okay? We've seen people get disqualified for roof rake. If you disqualify somebody, why not have the head of WISSOTA or somebody have a short little video clip and say, hey, last week we had some disqualifications for roof rake. Here's exactly how we're going to measure this rule. Get out the level, the tape measure, show everybody how to do it, put it right on Facebook, right on WISSOTA's page, and literally get it out there and say, we're going to check for this. Here's how it's taught. Here's how it's tech. Do you think it's time? That's something WISSOTA has not done very much to add value to the organization. Do you think this is a way where WISSOTA could add value to the organization, the tracks and drivers, to use every disqualification as a teachable moment and do something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it stopped the drivers from complaining too. I remember 2 years ago when the mod deck height was the big deal. I think Belfi started that up in Superior, correct?
Yeah.
And then I know, I think it was the Fallen Lineman race. One of the mod races, Dusty, we actually DQ'd Dusty Bitson, won. Ebert ended up getting the win at Viking Speedway for the deck height deal, and I think it was the next weekend. Well, everybody knew you were going to be checking deck height, and I know now. Last year, I know Gene Kockelman's the head tech guy over in a lot of our tracks over there, and if there's a new rule comes out, he does a really good job of going around and checking cars before the night begins. He's explaining what's going on and telling them. Now, they're not doing that at every track. You know that. So they're checking roof rakes and they're checking stuff like that. So Gene, I know, does a good job, but no, you're right. There needs to be a little video. Say, hey, here's what, have a tech update. Why not have a video of how we're doing that and what to look for, so these drivers can say, hey, yeah, that's what they're looking at this week. So then you show up to the track and you get DQ'd for a quarter inch, and now you don't have 20 drivers spitting mad. So yeah, it's a good point. Something needs to be and it's not that much. Or maybe, like I said, get all these tech guys and have them. Gene talks at pit meetings all the time. He'll do it at I-94. He does it at Viking. If there's an update, he'll go to the pit meeting and say, hey guys, Wasota's cracking down on this. Wasota's cracking down on that. So now everybody, all 6 drivers that show up to the pit meeting, you know how those goes. But at least he's up there saying, hey, we're working on this. This is what we're looking at. And I think it's a Wasota. Billy needs to get that out to these tech guys, to the tracks, just better communication. So you're 100% right.
Yeah, I thought that was a very well-written deal by Bill. Thank you for that. I think that would be a good idea. Jeff, on your end as a board member at Viking, you could maybe write something like that up and submit it to Wasota as a suggestion. Maybe submit it to all the tracks. I know other promoters have copied all the tracks in it. Maybe copy that in there. I think that's something that would be easy to do and something that would be of value. I got a bunch more here, but we're only going to do one more for the sake of time. We don't want it to be a 2-hour show. But Josh had a question, and he's a big fan over in Watertown. And he said, quite honestly, a lot of the top late model guys in the area don't come to my track every single night like he wishes they would. But they get a pretty darn good feel of mods over there. So in his opinion, right now today, the premier division at the casino speedway is the modified division. Now, a lot of people have looked at it. I know Bert and Puka, just kidding, Bert. The late models has always been the premier division, right? In some people's minds. But in Casino's example, he's like, is the mods maybe the premier division? And what is your guys' thought on a premier division at a specific racetrack? Bert, let's start with you.
Well, I mean, I'm going to speak from the aspect of Eastern Wisconsin. I'm going to say late models are the premier division, especially at Shawano Speedway. 2 weeks ago, when 141 Speedway held the Dirt Kings race on the same night that Shawano races, I heard from people that the attendance at Shawano Speedway was considerably less than what it normally is. Shawano's got a history of having late models since the beginning. So in that market, I would say late models is the premier division, but I mean, modifieds are definitely, a top division, at the track. In general, geographic area, modifieds are the premier division in general, because there's just so many more tracks that modifieds can race at. And I think that's true in Western Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Dakotas. There's just more tracks that modifieds race at than late models.
Jeff?
Yeah, and I know we talked about this earlier. Like, we don't have late models at Viking, but you want the late models to be your premier division. And I think over in this way, the last few years we lost Ricky Weiss. We lost Zach Johnson. We lost Jeff Wildung. We lost Jeff Hinkelmeyer. And those guys, and you know, even Don Shaw, he's not racing as much anymore. Those guys ran weekly at Viking Speedway, and it was a dogfight every single night. I remember Don Shaw and Jeff Wildung going at it in the tech building afterward, and everybody was like, "This is awesome. That's what you want to see." So you've lost that over here. And if you go to I-94 Speedway, the mods are the premier division. You go to Viking Speedway, the mods are. And I think, you know, I was just thinking about it. You get down to like KRA and Montevideo, I think the street stocks are the premier division at those tracks. And you remember a few years ago when I ran KRA weekly, we had 16 to 18 supers every single night, and they moved the supers to last because they were the premier division there. So it's really weird how that's shaping up right now. And it's kind of like Bert said, it's different in every area. It's really weird. You know, we were talking about, you know, up north, it's probably the late models. Just because they have, you know, all those guys are still running late models up there. And, you know, Dorr and Kanta and Matthews were kind of that group. And then you had your kind of your central group, and, you know, you had your South Dakota guys, and now Searing's over there. And then, you know, you had Strand and Seng and, you know, those guys, but that's kind of not really happening anymore. And I think the mods, especially in our area over here, I think the mods have definitely taken over.
Well, and
Yeah.
I should clarify, because Jeff brought up a good point when he was talking about street stocks and other divisions. When I say premier division, it doesn't necessarily always mean the best racing, because I mean the IMCA stock cars, like you said, Ryan, several times, you know, week after week, those things are, you know, door handle to door handle racing, and some of the most exciting racing of the show.
Yeah, spot on. And I think you guys both, I echo your sentiment here on saying it depends where, right? Because some places have a traditional, like that's the top class, and they got a fan base that's been like loyal and going for years, and they're late model guys or they're mod people or whatever. But if you don't have that, there's a lot of tracks where the bulk of the crowd is friends, family, sponsors, right? Mom, dad, brother, sister, that type of deal. So it kind of comes down to which track or which fan base is the loudest. So if you're wondering what class is the premier division, just listen. You got to be there. Can't hear this on Dirt Race Central, right? But listen, when you're at the track, when is the crowd making the most noise? That's probably the premier division at your racetrack. And I think Josh is right. I think that's modified. You get TPO, Joe Thomas, Dale Ames, you get Stearns and Conold and them guys throwing haymakers at each other. The crowd gets electrified over there. And I heard Scott Ward might have a modified coming back out, and he'll be right in the mix. So I think he's probably right on that. So let's jump into our pick'em segment here. And last week, I'm just gonna jump to this. Bert said on our bold predictions that Ryan's gonna get 0 points. The old Rye guy here got 6 points last week. No,
well,
I was excited about that, Bert. Until go ahead.
My strategy worked because I didn't want you to get shut out. So if I say you're going to get shut out, that means you'll get some points.
So this week you need to say I'm going to get the least amount of points of everybody, because I was excited about 6 points until I realized that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 freaking people in our group got more than 6 points, and one other person got 1 or got 6 as well. So I'm like, well, holy crap! There's only one person that got less freaking points than me, so that 6 points still suck. So I don't know. So Curtis and myself got 6. Mike got 9 last week. Kent got 8. Brad, Dan, Carl, and Bert got 7. And I don't know if Jeff maybe forgot to send his picks in. He got 2 points, I guess, but not very much. Not this, the other Jeff. So we picked World of Outlaws at Cedar last week. Gravel won 1. Who won night number 1 over there? Was it
Sweet?
Selzy?
No, Sweet.
Sweet? Oh, yeah. Sweet and Gravel won. I don't even remember what all races we picked. We picked the all the World of Outlaw late model races. We talked a little bit about that. We picked Musk and Gum. RTJ won that. We talked about that.
And the 10,000 to win. The 10,000 to win show.
Yeah, Border Battle. Sabraski got that one done. So the standings right now, Curtis at 87. The 2-time reigning, defending Pick'em's champion, Bert Lehman, at 85. Mike's at 84, Dan's at 76, Kent's at 75, Jeff and Brad at 71. I have not broke 70 yet. I'm at 68. Carl's at 62. So I got some work to do. All right. So this week, go for 50. We're going to pick that one. We're going to pick World of Outlaw Sprints at 34 Raceway and at Wilmot. We're going to pick the Dirt Kings over at the Berg. And Monday next week, XR Super Series at Dubuque. So that's the races we're going to pick. So the last lap here, guys, brought to you by Dirt Track Supply. So if you're over in the South Dakota, Western Minnesota area, these guys do a lot for dirt track racing. They build the aero chassis. If you need tires, safety equipment, parts, heck, just advice, fab work, you name it, get a hold of Ron and Trevor at Dirt Track Supply in Watertown, South Dakota. So one thing here, Steve Vessel, legendary family of racing up in northern Minnesota, been retired for a number of years. His kid, Derek Vessel, a hell of a race car driver. Steve Vessel is going to be back behind the wheel Friday night at the Hibbing Raceway. Excited for that. Of course, Derek runs a MB for Pat Capella. They still have the capital sitting there. So he's like, why not? Might as well jump in it. So good luck, Steve Vessel. Grand Rapids Speedway next Thursday. They are having a $1,250 to win Summer Sizzler mod special. Any specials coming up at the Viking Speedway there, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. We have our 8th annual Fallen Lineman modified race. It's a race that Corey Savor, he's an old board member from Viking here. He owns the 6X car of Zach Johnson, the modified. And Corey had his brother actually was a lineman and passed away a few years ago. And we started a memorial race for him. And now we're tag teaming. So we're doing 2. So I-94 Speedway on Friday night, Viking Speedway on Saturday night, $2,500 to win, $200 to start both nights. Great purse, $100 to win a feature, or $100 to win a heat race. There's a couple other contingency stuff in there too. So a couple great shows. Brady Gertis got the win last year. Brian Strand. We wish Brian Strand was back in a mod, right? Dustin Strand held off Dan Ebert a couple years ago. So it's some real good racing. And I've been on the horn getting some hold of some mod guys. So hopefully we can get some new guys here. And so if you're a modified fan and you want to see 2 good races, hit I-94 on Friday night and Viking Speedway on Saturday for the annual Fallen Lineman modified race.
Yeah, that should be good. Bert, anything going on in your neck of the woods? Any other shout-outs? We're going to do a rapid fire here in a quick second, but anything else in your end of the woods coming up?
Well, the Dirt Kings at the Berg in Luxembourg on Sunday night. Next week, I'm not aware of any big specials, but the following week will be the 10,000 to win IMCA stock car show at 141 Speedway. So that should be a pretty good show. Usually gets drivers from throughout the Midwest, and I think we should pick that race.
I think you're right. There's enough research that we can look back on to pick that one. So I think we might have to do that.
And they always have a practice night before the 2 nights of racing, so we can go on my race pass and see which drivers are there. Okay.
Perfect. So let's do a little rapid fire. Bert, if there's any results that you wanted to talk about here. But I got a handful of notes here. Just going to run through this really quickly. Just a few shout outs to some drivers that maybe a little hot streak or got their first wins. Bert, is there anything that anybody you want to shout out, or any results or anything that stuck out from this past weekend that we haven't covered yet?
Well, not from this past weekend, but the weekend before. I guess it was this past weekend too. Chris Engel was back out in a late model. He's raced late models for like 3 years, but he took last year off, and now he's back out in a late model. And then at 141 Speedway, when the Dirt Kings were racing there, Cole Zarneski, who just graduated from high school, and his dad just bought out some of the owners at 141. So now his dad is part owner of 141 Speedway. But anyway, Cole debuted a late model at the Dirt Kings race at 141. So far this year, he's raced a IMCA modified, IMCA street or IMCA stock car and a late model.
Nice. That's busy. Jeff, anybody you want to give a shout out here to?
Only one. Fiesta City Speedway, 1,000 to win supers Friday night, this Friday at Fiesta City Speedway. Got to give a shout out to Travis Scott. He invited me to the race. So I know Travis, they help run the track down there with Juanita and their daughter. So hopefully it's one of my bold predictions. Hopefully we can get a good car count down there at Fiesta City and get some supers down there for 1,000 to win, and they pay pretty decent back.
29 Star going to make it, or you got other stuff going?
Looking like right now I got other stuff going. I don't know. You never know. Maybe it's going to be one of those spur moments. I'm going to hop in and go. You never know.
I hope so. So I got a few here. Tucker Quinn, first career feature win over at the Rice Lake Speedway. Tip of the cap, Tucker Quinn. Good job to him. Streeter points, guys, are going to be tough. I just want to, the Brower boys, Colton Brower, Braden Brower, they've been extremely fast. Braden is stacking wins like crazy. Justin Vogel back, he's getting a bunch of wins. He kind of had a slow spot, but keep an eye on that national point battle in the street stock division. Brandon Rehill, a guy that I talked about a little bit north of the border in the Midwest mod, he's got a pile of wins already. Got his first feature win in the United States at Greenbush this past weekend. Congrats to him. Super stock battle. This one's going to be interesting. Everybody kind of has it written down. Shane Zabrowski going to be the national champ, except for we did have somebody call him out and say that ain't going to happen. But Dexton Cook right now leading the way, guys. 14 feature wins for Cook. Trevor Nelson, Shane Zabrowski tied at 11. The race is to 30, right? So it's not the first to 30, but your goal is to get 30 wins, and then it's car counts at that point. That one's going to be interesting. So I had members of the Chad Becker fan club reach out to me from the Brown County Speedway this past weekend. They had double features in the late model division. He wanted to give a donkey award. I'll just say this. It's the president of the Chad Becker fan club giving a donkey award here to old Chad Becker in the Brown County Speedway. So in the makeup feature, he threw a pretty nasty slider there on Rich Thomas, and contact was made. Tire goes down. Cost him a shot at the win. Cole Searing win in the makeup feature. In the A main, Cole Searing from 14th to 2nd actually threw a haymaker, tried to slide him for the win, and Becker crossed him over. But prior to that, guys, it's a you make the call, right? I got the video clip. I'm going to have Mason, shout out Mason Aaron's videos, going to have him posted here. It looked to me like old Becker maybe spun out that lap car and got his spot back. So his words were, Becker getting more gifts over here at the Brown County Speedway. You make the call on this one. But I tell you what, he's, no matter what, like him or not, he's a national championship contender. And Searing, of course, capping off the weekend with a 4,000 to win payday over at Miller. I think that was on Monday. Another one here, Nathan Grell, super stock driver. It's not just Trevor Nelson. You ever run again against Nathan Grell out there, the 2-car out in Aberdeen, Miller? Ever run against him?
Only a couple times, just a couple times.
He had a pair of wins, first 2 wins of the year. Got a pair of them this past weekend. Got to give a shout out to the Street Stock Tour. Of course, Nick Trainer, Kyle Dykoff in Victory Lane. Dykoff, of course, won the Natty last year. Hasn't raced until this weekend. Got a DNF and a win. Dean Larson, kind of give this guy a little grief for a little cherry picking or whatever you want to call it, but 17 wins on the year. He's going to be the first to 20. Zach Benson with another win. He's at 12. Deer Creek, mentioned this earlier, guys, 169 cars last week. That's incredible. 36 mods, 50 B mods, 33 Midwest mods. A person kind of wonders, right? You're like, how do you have Midwest mods and B mods? They're kind of the same thing. Well, between the two of them, they had 83 of them. That's incredible. Unbelievable. Reed Johnson, first career win in the Hornet up at the Halberline Speedway in Proctor. And you already mentioned it, but one more shout out to Tayton Blasick. First career win in the Midwest mod. First career win of any kind at the Viking Speedway. Rice Lake, guys, I do have a question for you here. So Rice Lake Speedway, Rodney Sanders was in the 40 car. I know Buzzy was tired. He's getting old, kind of a crew chief now. So he had Sanders driving. Zabrowski got the win, threw a little bit of, got a push, kind of went up the track, contact made. There's some grief afterwards, but needless to say, it was good, hard racing. But the question I have is in the Midwest mods, guys, they had a 6-lap feature. And I get it. It was 30 minutes, 6-lap feature, right? But 6-lap feature and Brady Larson won the A main. I want quickly, what is your thoughts on cutting laps and having a 6-car feature?
Yeah, that's 6 laps is tough. I had it. I think we had a 6 or 7 lapper up at Fargo a few years ago when I was racing, and it was the same deal. We talked about the guy that got 4th there. You thought maybe had a chance to win. I started like 17th or 18th, and I'm clipping them off. I get up to 4th, and not kidding, we came out of 4 one time. There was nothing. It was just a checkered flag. There was no white, no nothing. They just threw the checkered. And I was spitting mad and went flying up there, and no official nowhere to be found. Everybody, oh, that was a fun race. Well, we ran 7 laps. No. So I don't know. I didn't see the race. I don't know what happened. We started doing Viking after 3rd yellow. You got to go yellow and black. It shapes guys up in a big hurry. When they hear it's yellow and black, it's going to shape you up in a big hurry because you're going to the pits. You spin out on your own, you clip somebody, you're going to the pits. So I don't know the circumstances. I looked on my race pass that it was 30 minutes, 6 laps. That's a little rough. And I don't know if did they tell him beforehand what was going on the receiver, what was going on there? But yeah, 6 laps is definitely rough.
I think that's a rule there. I don't think it was a surprise. Bert?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you cut a race that short, only 6 laps. I mean, I've seen late model features at Shawano Speedway that have been, 6 laps, 7 laps, and it just leaves a, I don't know, an unfinished feeling with the drivers. And I mean, one thing, Shawano Speedway, they have a curfew so that they have time limits, like, I'm sure other tracks do. So each race gets a certain amount of time to be completed. And when, their rule is when it reaches that time, they throw the white and then they throw the checkered. What I think a track should do is if they reach the time limit, they keep racing until the next caution or the checkered flag. Because it only takes 20 seconds to run a lap. So as long as they're racing without cautions, just let them race for. But if a caution comes out, then that's the end of the race. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, that's an alternative, and I like what Viking Speedway does. Norman County Raceway in Ada did the same thing. After 3 yellows, it's yellow black, and that really sped the program up a lot. My thoughts on it is this: if there's the point average lineup system, right? You're already penalizing the top cars. They got to start 8. Now you take Mike Schneider. He's fast. He might have won that race. Well, he didn't. He only got 6 laps. So if you're going to have the point average lineup system, which sucks, I don't like it. You can't cut laps. You're screwing over the drivers that aren't causing problems. And if I was a fan of one of them drivers, I'd be like, I literally came here to watch that guy, and you only gave him 6 laps. Do I get in free next week then? I didn't get to watch a race, and I get it. I'm on the other side of it. I mean, yellow after yellow after yellow. I mean, it was ridiculous, guys. I watched it, and I'm like, these freaking guys, what are they doing? I mean, it was terrible. And I don't remember where it was. Maybe Greenbush. Remember they put them in timeout a couple years ago? They said, you guys can't get your crap together. You go sit in the infield. You watch these cars race their feature. Then we'll let you come back out. I thought that was kind of cool. That's maybe something they need to have done.
I actually don't mind that idea.
Yeah, then they at least get to race, and they'll get the point, right? So let's jump into our last segment here. 3 bold predictions brought to you by Impact Health Sharing. If you pay for your own health care, you got employees. If you feel like you're paying too much, give me a text, 218-969-1380. I can get you a no-obligation quote, get you all the information you need to see if we can help save you some money on health insurance. So off the board this week, Bert, I kind of shoved everything out just a little bit. I had nothing come off the board. You had 2 off the board. You said David Gravel was going to win one this weekend. He did. And you said the old rye guy here was going to get 0 points in. He got 6. So eat that, right? Roll that up in your pipe and smoke it, right? So our standings, Bert, you're at 41.9%. I'm at 37.9%. And the listeners on the board finally last week, 7.7%. They got a ton that hasn't come off the board yet. Now, this week, we got a couple guests that threw in a couple picks here. And so what we do every week is We take three, right? Three bold predictions. They got to be something that either did or did not happen. It can't be like an opinion. So it's got to be something where we can keep track of. So, Bert, we'll start with you. We'll go to Jeff. We'll go to me. And then I have two to filter in here that I got from a couple fans as well. So, Bert, what's your first bold prediction for the week?
My first is I will say Nick Evelink will make the big show at Deer Creek.
Okay. With the low car counts, I think he can do it anyway. He's a hell of a race car driver. I hope he does.
Well, I had that written down before I knew how many cars were there. So
yeah, fair enough. Jeff?
Yes, our boy, Bailey Roche, will get a victory at a track other than Viking Speedway this season.
All right. He's a little protege there, right? So I'm going to throw Justin's in here. Fan of the show, submitted one. So July 9th, this Sunday, Bemidji Speedway, Northern Minnesota, it's their Meet the Drivers night. And they typically get high 80s, low 90s in car count. He said they will have more than 100 cars Sunday for their Meet the Drivers night at the Bemidji Speedway. So I'm going to go with Go for 50 as well. So 2022, Brandon Overton won. 21-20, they both, one rained out, one had COVID. B. Shep, Marlar, and Madden won the last three before that. This year's Go for 50 will be won by a driver that has not yet won the Go for 50. Bert?
okay. I am going with Ryan Gustin will finish in the top 3 in points in the World of Outlaw series. He's sitting in
record. Where do you think he's going to finish?
Second.
Okay. That's off the record. So top 3, you get the point, but you're picking him to get second. Okay.
Next one. This is a big one. This is bold. I'm going 20 plus super stocks at Fiesta City for the 1,000 to win super stock special Friday night. You got to remember, they only had 4 last Friday. Okay, so we're going bold. 20 plus supers at Fiesta City Speedway.
So you're going to look at the car count and you're going to basically get yours in there, get Johnny's over there to make sure this pick happens.
No.
You better have your deal loaded up. Man, I hope you're right. I like that place. And for them to put on 1,000 to win special, they do, I think, for all their classes. So hopefully they get a good car count. And, on the outside looking in, I have a feeling that you're going to see and not that there's not other good cars there, but I'm kind of feeling a little battle here between the old 71 of Trevor Nelson and the 78 of Shane Sabraski. So I'm not sure if this one is streamed or not, but get over there. It's going to be worth it. I'm going to slide in Nick here. Speaking of specials, Cedar Lake Speedway this weekend. It's the month of money at Cedar Lake. It's the 5,000 to win B-Mod special this weekend. And he goes, I believe they're going to get 65 or more B-Mods Saturday night at the Cedar Lake Speedway. That's bold. Last year, I think they had 57, I think. So it's possible. So my second one here, I'm going to go with a fan favorite here. I'm going to go Kennedy Swan. So Kennedy Swan so far this year, rookie in the modified division, 6 top 5 finishes, 1 second, 3 thirds. Guys, she should have won at Halber Lines up in Proctor a few weeks back. Yellow came out last lap. It was done. She will win at least one feature before September 1st in the A-Mod. Kennedy Swan in the 18S.
Okay. My last one, I'm going to the dark side, and I'm going to do asphalt. Just because it's probably the biggest, it is the biggest asphalt race in Wisconsin. The Slinger Nationals is next Tuesday, I believe. They have 7 drivers that are registered that have raced in NASCAR. Eric Jones is planning on racing there. Matt Kenseth, William Bryan, Chase Elliott, Johnny Sauter, Derek Kraus, and Ty Majeski. And I am predicting that Ty Majeski will win the Slinger Nationals next week.
There you go. I like it. I like it. Jeff, your third and final.
Yeah, we're going bold. We're going back to hometown here. I am going to say the same driver is going to win both fallen lineman races at I-94 and Viking. So you know how the mod guys up here, it's going to be super, super tough to do. So I don't have a driver, but the same driver is going home with $5,000 this weekend.
So what you're saying is Justin Fremming is going to have a good weekend in the 33X.
Hey, that's a good possibility. There's he's been pretty hot. It's a good one to throw one out there, but there's going to probably be 20 guys that could do it, maybe even more, hopefully. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, there's some good mods over there. I'm excited for that as well. And I'm going to go with my third and final prediction. And I'm going to go World of Outlaw sprint cars here. Okay. Wasn't sure which direction I was going to go. I was thinking maybe Mod Wars, but I'm going to go with the World of Outlaw. So Donnie Schatz has been struggling, guys. He got one top 5 in his last 14 tries. Donnie Schatz is going to have 3 or less top 5 finishes in the entire month of July. I hope I'm wrong. We put him on the not hot list, so yeah, he could. I could eat that one here 2 out of the 3 this weekend. But Schatz has been struggling. I don't know if he can turn this around, and my smart money's saying he's not gonna. So there we have it. So Bert Lehman, Ryan Aho, Jeff Krause, thanks for joining us again. Check out the Dirt Podcast wherever you can get podcasts. You're on about every podcast forum, aren't you, out there? So check that out. And thanks for listening to the show. Support all of our sponsors. Thank you to all of them, of course. And like Jeff said earlier, get to the racetrack, right? I mean, we love watching it online, but not only get to the track, bring somebody new with you, right? I challenge you to grab a hold of somebody, bring somebody new. Let's expose more people to this great sport. Guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.